What is up, guys? Well, it is time to talk about the month that has passed. All 11 brand new release films that I was able to check out in May 2025. Obviously, this video is coming a few days later than I normally like to get it out. I was in California for about 4 days checking out Monsterpalooza. I will have a video out on that con experience very soon. And then we also have a couple of new releases this weekend. So look forward to all that content coming your way. And as I said, 11 brand new releases, and this one was kind of an odd month because while I definitely have movies that I really enjoyed at the top, there's not like a 5 out of 5 movie or like one of the best of the year. Like all 3 or 4 of my top films here are movies that have very significant flaws. And then at the bottom, most of those films are films that I saw at film festivals that are well made, just not really my thing. So very interesting month that May was, but let's go ahead and get into it. Coming in at number 11, easily the worst film and certainly one of the most disappointing films that I saw in May of 2025 is going to be Fear Street Prom Queen. This is the fourth entry. Muscle memory's a bitch. Fourth entry in this little Fear Street anthology series that Netflix has been starting. We got the trilogy back in, I believe, 2021. So it's been a long time waiting for them to see what they're going to do next. And unfortunately, this was not worth the wait whatsoever. You can turn this on and have some very dumb, dispensable fun if you just like very low quality slashers. And hey, I have plenty of those movies that I'm a fan of, but this one to me just really missed the mark all the way around. You get one halfway decent kill. I like some of the 80s aesthetic, but overall, it's a film that really leans into all of the tropes, all of the tired cliches of the genre, and even the 80s side of things really doesn't have a whole lot of charm because it's like the most cookie cutter, surface level 80s nostalgia that you're going to find. Like they literally just play every overplayed 80s hit all throughout this film, and it doesn't really capture the vibe of the 80s in a way that's enjoyable. It's just very easy window dressing. And when you get to the ultimate reveals of the film, certainly is not worth the price of admission. So this one to me was just a gigantic dud. Coming in number 10 is going to be Sister Midnight. This is something that I saw at Fantastic Fest, I believe last year, might have been the year before. But this is a film that, you know, I wouldn't say it's a bad film or a poorly made film. It's just really not my thing. It's very much allegorical, it's very much metaphorical, and you basically have this woman in India and she is in an arranged marriage, doesn't really care for her husband too much, and so it's kind of a story about that culture and a woman kind of pushing back against it. And then in some really strange, non-conventional way, it kind of brings like vampirism into it, and I don't know, the whole thing was very odd to me. Maybe it's just a cultural difference of a lot of the genius going on I couldn't really connect with. And you guys know I love vampire stuff, but it was such a strange version of that I almost feel like a liar calling it a vampire film, but it's certainly going for that. So a weird one. I heard some people at that festival that really loved it. So if you're curious about it, check it out. Just not my thing. Also very much not my thing is The Surfer. And I saw this just a few months ago at South by Southwest. And this is the newest Nicolas Cage doing something weird movie. And what I actually got really excited for with this one is that it has Julian McMahon in it, who I grew up in my teenage years idolizing as Christian Troy on Nip Tuck, and haven't really seen him do much since. So it was cool to see him in here. And it's a film that, again, very bizarre, very metaphorical. And essentially you got Nicolas Cage here who just really wants to go surfing on this beach in Australia and the local surfers won't let him. And it just kind of becomes a descent into madness type film where he's just stuck in this parking lot waiting for his chance to go and surf. And these surfers are doing things to kind of make him lose his mind and gaslight the living fuck out of him. And so it's halfway interesting and entertaining just to watch Nicolas Cage descend into madness, as you can imagine it is. And I think that Julian McMahon is really good at the film's antagonist, but ultimately just kind of leads to conclusions and statements where I'm just like, okay, was that worth all of this? I don't know. Maybe for some. For me, it was just a little too weird. Coming in at number 8 is a film that I think honestly probably deserves to be below The Surfer and Sister Midnight, but I just have to be honest, as bad as this film is, I would rather rewatch it than The Surfer and Sister Midnight, so I'm going to stick it here at 8. And that is Karate Kid Legends. And I would say that this is easily one of the most disappointing films of the year so far, but I honestly never had any faith in it in the first place, so I can't say that it really disappointed me. It pretty much delivered what I feared it was going to be. All the way back when they announced this film, I think they were still in season 5 of Cobra Kai, or at least just starting the final season. Felt like a very odd thing to do, an odd thing to announce. The more they announced about it, really didn't seem like it was a good idea. It really felt like Sony being Sony. And the fact that it felt they definitely stretched out, if nothing else, the release, but just the size of the final season of Cobra Kai to that season's detriment, that also turned me off to this film. Now, when you watch the trailer for this, like, this is kind of the best and the worst thing about this film. You watch the trailer for Karate Kid Legends, and what are they selling you? Well, they're selling you a pretty traditional Karate Kid film. You got a kid from China who moves to New York, starts to get bullied, and then gets trained by Jackie Chan's character from the remake and Ralph Macchio's character, and comes back to fight in a karate tournament against his bullies. I mean, that's tried and true Karate Kid right there. But that's not what this film's about. That is absolutely a bait and switch, which is a classic Sony move. What is this film actually about? Oh, it's about this kid that is already trained in kung fu, who moves to New York and befriends this pizza parlor owner who wants to be a boxer. And so he starts training this boxer with the notions of kung fu to help him kind of get back into the ring. And then in the third act, they decide we should probably make it a Karate Kid movie out of nowhere. It's bizarre. It is absolutely baffling. Like, when I say that out loud, you're going to swear I'm lying, but that's the plot of the film. That is the main focus of the movie. They literally Halloween ended this thing where it's like, oh yeah, I guess we should probably make this about Michael and Laurie at some point. So look, that is a terrible idea for a Karate Kid film. And while I was watching it, like, I was in a theater by myself. I never do this, but mid-movie, I literally texted my buddy Sean Chandler, who had already seen this. And I was like, this movie's really about a fucking pizza parlor guy training in boxing. And he goes, yep. So in a weird way, that kind of gave me some enjoyment, just kind of laughing at how horrible of an idea this is for a Karate Kid film. But you know what? You get past that. Does it capture some of the surface level, superficial charm of a Karate Kid film? Yeah, it's in there. Is it superficially entertaining for all the wrong reasons? Of course. Is there some funny back and forth between Jackie Chan's character and Ralph Macchio's character? Definitely got some good laughs out of that. It's slickly produced. It's got kind of its own unique style to it. So I would not say that this film is like a dumpster fire. It's a terrible idea for a Karate Kid film, and I think that Karate Kid fans, especially after how great Cobra Kai turned out to be, deserve a lot better. But it's guilty pleasure for sure. Like, if my kids wanted to watch this, I would certainly sit down and enjoy it. So yeah, if you were waiting on bated breath for Karate Kid movie to come back and reclaim the glory of like the cinematic version of Karate Kid, you're gonna have to keep waiting, because they Sony'd the fuck out of this. Coming at number 7 is a film called Friendship, and this is one that I actually saw at South by Southwest, and it must have got just like a limited release, because I didn't really see it playing in theaters, but it definitely played in the month of May. And this is essentially, they've marketed it this way too, and it's the perfect way to represent it. It is I Love You Man for psychopaths. So you have, I believe Tim Davidson is the name of the comedian.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Who, this is my first introduction to him, which might have been a bit of a detriment to the movie for me. And he's paired with Paul Rudd, and it's essentially about this really awkward, weird guy that gets a little bit of a scent of friendship from Paul Rudd. And it's kind of like the Cable Guy, where he suddenly gets infatuated with him and goes too far and gets socially awkward. And it turns very darkly comedic with how bad things go. Now, what I will say is that if you are a fan of Tim Davidson, everybody that I spoke to that loves him thinks that this is like the greatest comedy that they've seen in years. So you're in for a treat. For me, I think it would have helped me if I had prepped and kind of experienced more of his style of comedy and knew what to expect when I watched this, because it took a little while for me to kind of get into cadence with his version of comedy. And also, I was at a festival, and the festival crowd that I saw this with, I feel like might have hurt my experience too, because sometimes the really over-expressive nature of the festival crowd can make a film experience amazing. But once in a while, if you're not completely vibing with a movie, it can kind of be a bit of a detriment, because like people are literally laughing at every third line in the film, and you're just like, I don't understand what was funny about that. He just picked up a fucking coffee cup. What's the bit? What's the punchline there? Explain it to me. I want to laugh too, bitch. By the way, I just double checked because I knew the name sounded wrong in my head. It's Tim Robinson, not Tim Davidson. So count how many comments are already in the comment section. They didn't even give me a chance to correct myself. But yes, Tim Robinson is the guy that I was talking about, paired with Paul Rudd. So this is a movie that I would say kind of know who you are. If you're a Tim Robinson fan, I think you should absolutely see it, because this is just basically his movie. It is his style of comedy for 2 hours. If you're not exactly somebody that gets into like the cringe style comedy that he is very much the face of right now, then you might like it, you might not like it, but I would say it's worth checking out because I did get some good laughs out of this. I just wish that I could have enjoyed it on the level of everybody else in my theater. I would have been telling you that this is the greatest comedy I've seen in forever because you guys know I'm starved for good comedy nowadays. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Lilo and Stitch, the latest of the live action Disney remakes that we've been getting over the last, 7-8 years. And I will say this is one of the better ones. I don't think that it's like by far the greatest one. I saw that being used a lot in the early reactions, like this was the second coming of Remake Christ. And I wouldn't say that. I'm somebody that I've always enjoyed the animated film. I haven't rewatched it anytime recently, but I really liked it as a kid. I remember it came out the same time as Scooby-Doo. I think I might even watched a double bill with those in the theaters. And so this felt like a story that would lend itself well to live action. And in some ways, I was right, and in other ways, I was wrong. I think that Stitch is absolutely the star of the show here. Any scene that he is a part of is gold. Getting the voice actor to return and do the voice again certainly helps. His chemistry with Lilo and even the little girl who plays Lilo is very good. So everything focused on the titular characters of Lilo and Stitch I thought was gold. Everything outside of them really fell flat for me. Like if you had told me that Zach Galifianakis was going to be the worst part of this film, I would have told you you're crazy. I don't know what he was doing. It didn't work for me at all. I don't know if he was miscast. I don't know if it was the fact that they had to film this in COVID, so he wasn't able to like ad lib or do anything to kind of bring his style into it. But it just felt like everything with him and the other guy who are playing kind of the aliens hunting Lilo and Stitch just were kind of cringy to me. And even some of the ways that, I don't know, there's a certain charm about the animated film that translates here, and there's a certain piece of it that I feel like gets a little lost in translation. So some of it's honestly just kind of the same issues that we've been having with a lot of these live action remakes, which is that there's a bit of inherent charm and quality to the animated form of these that you're just never really going to be able to recreate with a live action. It's a test in futility there. But I do think this is one of the better ones. I enjoyed it. My girls and my wife really enjoyed it. So the target audience is going to enjoy the hell out of this one. If you're a family man like me, go out, you'll have a good time. Coming in at number 5, you got the newest from the Philippou brothers, which is Bring Her Back. These are the directors that gave us Talk to Me, which was my favorite horror film the year that it released. So naturally, I was very interested and excited to see what they were going to do next. I walked into this movie completely blind. And what I will tell you is that the first 80% of the film, I dug it. I wasn't quite liking it on the level of Talk to Me all the way through it, but thought it was yet again a very creative spin on a familiar type of horror story. And then it reaches a point in its third act where they make a decision on where to go with the plot that absolutely lost me. They just completely abandoned everything that I was interested in, everything I was invested in, everything that I was really looking forward to seeing being paid off in the third act. Just absolutely just abandoned it completely. Like, oh, we're just going to go in this other direction now. And it felt like such a betrayal of their own story. And where they eventually go in the climax of the film, to me, this really fizzled out. It felt like for a movie that was so punishingly bleak, like almost to an unappealing degree, that them trying to pivot and be slightly more hopeful, I guess, didn't feel earned at all. And it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So what I will say about the film is that it's definitely memorable. It definitely goes for broke with some of the gore and the on-screen carnage. Like it's a movie where you see different body parts being mutilated. And they go for broke. Just like what they did with Talk to Me, that is something that these guys definitely have in their wheelhouse that they are very effective at. But as a story, it just fell flat for me by the end of it. I can't for the life of me understand why they went the direction that they did. So I still liked this one overall. I am curious to check it out, but man, I just wish they went in a different direction. Like if they had ended somewhat in the direction that it felt like they were heading, this could have easily been number 1 on this list, but as it is, it's number 5. Coming at number 4, we got Clown in a Cornfield. I saw this at its premiere at South by Southwest, and this is a film that I really didn't know anything about it. I mean, you can read the title and kind of get an idea of what you're in for, and to a certain extent, you're right. And the first 45 minutes or so of the film, it's exactly what I was expecting it to be, just like another clown slasher. Not that that's even a bad thing, but it was just a very straightforward, kind of, I would even say kind of generic clown slasher. And then the movie takes a pretty major turn and you realize what the whole heart and the whole spice of this movie is going to be. And then it was a lot of fun. You know, it's a film that is a horror comedy at its heart. This is the director that did Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is one of the more popular horror comedies of the last number of years. And I think his sensibilities translate over to this pretty well. There was some really good laughs in the theater. There's a really nice recurring comedy about generational divide and like Gen Z people and boomers and, you know, all them. And so it was something that could very easily have been heavy-handed, but was done in a very comedic way. Some pretty solid kills in here as well, which is good. If you're going to have a slasher, don't cheap out on that. And they didn't. And so this was just an enjoyable time. You know, it's one that was just fun. It was a good, solid, fun time that has a lot of franchise potential. So I don't know how successful it ended up being, but if we get a Clown in a Cornfield 2, I'll be there. Day one, baby. Coming at number 3 for me is going to be Thunderbolts, also known as the New Avengers. What was up with that, by the way? Like, that kind of felt like there was a hint of genius in that, and then at the same time, it's like, okay, so studios are just going to spoil their own films now. Like, you take away everything from the whole journey of this film to try to market it and get a few more desperate bucks out there. And it almost to the point where I feel dirty calling it that, but if they are going to do it, then I guess there's no room for me to feel bad about it. So yeah, this is the latest MCU film. And what I will say is that it's certainly one of the better ones. You know, I don't think that this is like top tier, top 5 MCU, but it's definitely one of the best ones that we have got since Endgame. And the reason for that is that it's story and character driven. This is a movie that graduates past just a lot of the on-screen comic book stuff and actually does a pretty good job at discussing mental health and depression and things like that within these larger than life characters. And I think that they do a really nice job at still being entertaining, but actually taking themselves fairly seriously, trying to do something a little bit more with its storytelling with a group of characters that you would not expect to get that extra treatment as well. The cast of characters here is a lot of fun. Like Florence Pugh, absolutely love her. Everything that she does, I'm going to watch because she's just awesome and nails everything. You have, of course, David Harbour in here, who's a lot of fun as well. I mean, you got Bucky, who's a badass. It's a really good group of characters for like that ragtag Suicide Squad type appeal. I think that even the way that they handle the villain, like on paper, it sounds like that's probably going to be a little bit lame. But when you watch it in context, it puts story and like the thematic part of the film before like on-screen punchy shit, you know, soups versus soups. And so I kind of appreciated that about it. Now, it kind of bombed because the MCU is on a bit of a downslope, and I think they need to have like 3 really good movies in a row to get people back into it. But this is one that's definitely worth your attention. If you've been very disappointed and frustrated with the MCU of the last 4 years or so, this is one that I think is good medicine for that headache. And my top 2 for me, honestly, they're kind of tied, but as of right now, I'm going to put Final Destination Bloodlines at number 2. This is one that I was certainly excited about, did a whole review series leading up to it, trying to build hype for it. That was a lot of fun to finally review all those films. And Final Destination Bloodlines honestly was so good that I think that it was, if not the second best, maybe the best of the franchise. I still have a lot of nostalgia for the first one, so that one's still my favorite probably, but Final Destination Bloodlines did what I've wanted these movies to do for a while, which is try to do something a little different, because the Final Destination films are very templated. And this one certainly follows that template, but it attacks it in kind of a different way. It brings in some new spins with having the bloodline be the determining factor of who dies and not just necessarily who dies in the premonition. Brings in a little bit of an extra look at the lore here and how it could look in a more expanded view of these accidents if they were actually prevented rather than just having a few people get out of harm's way. I think that the character with the piercings, I forget the character's name, is the best character in this entire franchise. That guy was absolute gold. And the kills here are really solid. Like 2 of the kills in this film are among my favorites of the entire franchise. And on that note, I know I promised doing a kill ranking, tier list. I am still doing that. I'm just waiting for Final Destination Bloodlines to hit the VOD, because then I'll have high quality clips to be able to pull from to make that video the best version of itself. Also, I was just balls to the wall busy over the last couple of weeks, so those 2 things kind of worked out. That video is still coming. Expect it by the end of June. But yeah, Final Destination Bloodlines, for what these films promise and for what I want them to deliver, I had a really good time with this one. Now, you still had some flaws in the storytelling. You didn't have the most compelling lead character. There was a bit of an overuse of CGI. Definitely a film that has major flaws. but one that still entertained the hell out of me and brought back Final Destination in a pretty triumphant way that I'm looking forward to seeing the future of this franchise continue to shine. But my number one film of the month, also a pretty flawed film significantly, but the film that gave me the best theatrical experience by far in the month of May, and that's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, this is one of those movies and one of those franchises that when I tell you this is one of the worst films in the franchise, but still a pretty damn good movie, that just tells you how good the franchise is. And I will say, story-wise, this is probably the messiest film, even more than Mission Impossible 2, of all 8 of these films. You know, there's a lot of things they're trying to cover here. They're trying to tie back to previous films. In some ways that works, in some ways it really doesn't. It feels a little bit convoluted. It feels extremely exposition heavy. But once you get over that, once you get through that first hour or so of the film that is all set up, man, it is off to the races. And it gives you everything that you want from the modern Mission Impossible films. And as far as the big, gigantic set pieces, the big Tom Cruise vehicles of these movies, the two that you have in this film, the submarine sequence underwater, and even more so the plane sequence. The plane sequence, I think, is the wildest stunt that he's ever done. I still hold the fourth film as my number one favorite as far as them scaling that building. But as far as like the balls it takes, like you look at it and you're like, dude, this fucking guy wants to die. This is the one that I think really is the showcase of that more than any of the others. Such a huge, exhilarating sequence to see in IMAX. And it ends in a spot where I feel like it was overall, despite a rocky road getting started, a very satisfying potential end to this franchise. So as a lifelong Mission Impossible fan, certainly I would have preferred that it was a film that was on the level of something like Fallout or the fourth film, where I just think it's damn near perfect. But for what I got, even with a flawed Mission Impossible film, the positives far outweighed the negatives, and I had a hell of a time. So that comes in at number one. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all my 2025 new release reviews. I'm also going to put a playlist up here of all of my month wrap-ups of the year so far. And as I said, a lot of cool things to look forward to, so be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of that as I release it. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.